We've got a great show for you this week as we talk about Ryan Coogler's new film, The Sinners.
I get to talk to Kriv Stenders about his brand new film, The Correspondent.
We tackle the year that was 1989.
And The Meg takes on Deep Blue Sea in this week's movie battle.
Welcome to Good Movie Monday, your home of nerdy cinematic ramblings. I am your host, Ben Helwig, and I'm joined as ever by Mr. Glenn A. Cochran.
Yeah, that's right. You never figured out what that A was.
No, I'm going with Archie.
Okay, well, there's your guess for this week. We'll count it out throughout the season.
See how long it takes.
Yep.
As I said, we are the home of nerdy cinematic ramblings. If this is your first time listening, then why don't you head over to our website, goodmoviemonday.com, and check out all our social media. Links are all there. You can also listen to past shows, including the podcast before this.
Several podcasts
before this.
There's even a micro podcast called What the Fuck Was That?
So much at goodmoviemonday.com.
We did a podcast called Franchised, which talked all about franchises, and then the second series was called Franchise 2, but I was very proud of that. Rewind and Digress was Jarrett's show, where we rewind and digress about movies. There's heaps of content. It goes back a mile and a half. So,
and that's where episodes I Can't Believe You've Never Seen will be stored whenever I get that off the ground.
Mm-hmm. Yep, coming to you at a podcast. It'll never be coming. I hope it does.
Sometime in the future. Yeah, no, never.
It all comes down to this bloke and whether we can rely on him to get it done, and make of that what you will.
I need to buy myself the equipment. That's what's stopping it. That's 100%.
You've got a studio right here.
Yeah, you just come and do it.
Yeah.
Guess what we did this week?
What?
Well, you were there, so you know.
Okay.
We went to see The Sinners at the Melbourne premiere. Unfortunately, we did not get to see it at IMAX like those Sydney siders. And I remember commenting to you beforehand going, it's so odd because over all the marketing it says shot on IMAX cameras, and when you watch it, it's clearly made for an IMAX screen.
You know what? Yes, it was made for IMAX. Would have been pretty good on IMAX, but I don't like IMAX.
No.
And therefore, I was quite happy. So long as you see this on a cinema screen, preferably in a place that's got a pretty good sound system, you'll be fine.
Well, yeah, I mean, you gamed the system by just making it sit closer to the front, so the screen appeared bigger.
We're just a bit closer, so you got a big screen, mate.
Yeah, and it worked.
It did, and I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I thought it was an absolute banger. It is an all-consuming sensory experience.
I thoroughly enjoyed this. I think I said to you after I was 90% fantastic, 10%. There is a scene. I'm not going to mention what it is. Yep. I'll let you make up your mind. I'm sure you'll know when it happens.
Let's just say there is a theme right from the get-go that music transcends time. And
storytellers, music is the storytelling that has transcended time.
Music transcends time.
Yeah,
because basically that what you will.
Basically, the film is about these twin brothers who come back to their
twin gangsters.
Yeah. Who have made it big in Chicago and have come back home to their town in, not exactly sure, south somewhere.
Yeah, it's non-specific.
They come back down south and they open a juke joint. And it's their opening night when they're visited. The music attracts some strange visitors, shall we say.
Some musical visitors.
Yeah.
That's what I loved most about this film. Yeah. To be honest with you, I mean, we were pretty much invested in the film the whole time, so we didn't talk to each other or share glances or anything. Yeah. But I know I was thinking, this is amazing. Like these vampires, these villains, if you will, it's so unique. Like they're unlike vampires I've seen in any other movie. I love the concept. I love what they do. Yeah. It just and it just brought two cultures together, which was so weird.
But it's what's kind of so amazing is that the trio of vampires, you actually get it starts off as one.
Yeah.
And you get to see him turn it into a trio.
Yeah.
But then without any rehearsal or any knowledge that the other people play any kind of instruments.
Yep.
Once you become a vampire,
you're instantly an Irish jigger.
You can you can sing in perfect 3-part harmony. Which is so good.
I love it. And look, the thing that you had a beef with, the more I think about it, I kind of did like it. I think it worked for me. It was such a surreal, weird moment that I kind of just appreciated what it was doing in and of itself.
It just took me out of the film. But apart from that, look, it is a minor moment.
Yeah.
And it is I mean, as like I said to you before we went in, I was like, this movie's got a 2-hour, 17-minute runtime. Like, what the fuck? And literally now I can see where they could have removed at least that 17 minutes.
For sure, but it didn't bother me though. Like it still moved like a freight train.
Yeah.
You know, like, but yes, you're right.
Like it's actually one of the few films that I've seen with that kind of runtime where I'm like, I would have been happy with another 60 minutes.
Yeah.
Like I could have gone.
Yeah, and you know what? To be honest with you, it's a bit like even structurally, it's a bit like From Dusk Till Dawn, right? The first half of the film is actually set up, and it's these brothers returning to this town and making their presence known. Like with a little bit of intimidation here, you know, all this setup, and I really, really dug that. Like I was happy for the vampires to wait. Like I was like, you know, I don't care if we don't get to that for a while. This stuff's really good, and it's well written. And I might say, I think it's the best example I've ever seen of an actor playing dual roles in film. It was seamless. I forgot.
I mean, all those scenes right at the start, the opening kind of shot where he's passing his cigarette to himself, and you're like, yeah, this is like, I mean, it did feel a bit like when you watch a 3D movie and they have the sticks coming at you, and you're like, you've done this for the 3D.
I think that's psychological, though. I think because we know he's playing both roles, our mind wants us to think that. But I found it quite seamless.
I didn't know until the movie started that he was playing a dual role.
Yeah, I didn't. It was part of their marketing.
Yeah, I didn't. I remember watching the trailer and seeing like the character playing his brother, but I was like, hang on a second, isn't that him?
Yeah.
Like I just didn't pick up on the fact that it was two.
Yeah. Cool.
But I think, you know, we did talk about after, I would have been, there is a point in this movie where the vampires turn up, but had they switched it and just made it a gangster film, it would have worked equally well.
Yep.
Like it was just that, like you could, like the first half of the movie, before the vampires come in, I would have been happy just to watch the end of that film.
Yeah, same.
Without vampires.
Same. Yeah. There you go. So that technically came into cinemas last Thursday, now screening, as did The Correspondent. And I'm going to hold off talking about that until we have Kriv later on the show to discuss the film. But I just want to touch on opening in cinemas this week. We got The Accountant 2.
Yeah,
and we've got
you've seen this, haven't you?
Yeah, and Until Dawn, which is the video game adaptation, which we have an interview with those directors, I think, next week on the show. So I'll probably talk about that a bit more at length then. But The Accountant 2, if you enjoyed the first one, this one I think is much better.
Yeah, right. It's been clipped to hell on. It's been clipped to hell on TikTok at the moment.
Yeah,
because of the Accountant 2 coming out.
Yeah,
and it does make me so much stuff that I've forgotten happened in The Accountant that I do want to go back and watch it.
I don't think it's necessary to revisit because it does fill in a few of those gaps as you go. Right. Like it just all comes back to you. You know, like it doesn't rely too heavily on that film.
I don't think there's too much of a backstory with him. Like he's, you know.
Well,
who his character is. Like
they gave the backstory in the first one.
Yeah, but there's no need. Like it's not like it's super complicated that you need to have seen the first one.
No,
like there's nothing in the first one that's
I just think it's really well done. It's well written, and there's a fantastic boot scooting scene in it that is well worth it for the price of admission alone. Hey, before we move on though, I do want to tell you something that I did last week and something that I've cracked a code. I've cracked something, right? So I have something I've spoken.
Congratulations, you're a man now.
I have spoken about this on the show many times, and I wanted to give some kind of resolution to the story. Right, so I have spent maybe 6 or 7 times trying to watch
Traveling Man,
Indiana Jones, and the Dial of Destiny to enjoy, and I haven't enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I watched it again for like maybe the 7th time, and from start to finish, I enjoyed the ride, which, you know, persistence. That just shows that persistence. Still hasn't happened with In Dreams yet, but it will one day. I like to return to movies that I want to like but don't, and this one I just happened to, it's clicked.
I feel that's how it used to be when I used to buy CDs.
Yeah.
I usually, you know, I'd buy it for the single.
Yeah.
And then there'd be 12 other tracks or 11 other tracks that you're like,
yeah,
I don't know these songs. I don't know the lyrics, but I would force myself to listen to it 10, 15 times over and over again until I got to know the other songs. And all of a sudden, an album full of stuff that I'd never heard before becomes banger of an album.
And you can't kind of listen to any song on its own. You kind of got to have the album
It's got to
experience.
have I used to tape songs off the radio.
Same.
And it got to the point where I'd hear that song somewhere else, and then I'd automatically go into what the DJ had said after they come back from the thing, because that's how it was.
Me too. So there you go. Like I still think it's the worst of all the Indiana Jones movies, but I enjoyed it this time. So how about that?
Yeah.
Got there in the end.
I enjoyed it the first time I saw it, so I didn't have that problem.
So long.
It's
nearly 3 hours.
Yeah, unnecessary length, and the ending is a bit odd. All the way right up until the very end, I thought I enjoyed it, and okay, let's not go. Let's go down a rabbit hole of. The more I think about it, the more things I didn't like, but. As a spectacle, watching it the first time without putting no thought into it, I enjoyed it. Yeah, it's only when I came out afterwards and was like, "What's the deal with?"
I could have ended this conversation like minutes ago, but you've already gone down that. You've got your toe in the rabbit hole.
Yeah, you led me to the entrance.
I've triggered him
and shoved me down.
Poor Pooh Bear.
It's Terrific TV Tuesday, the only Tuesday TV segment that drops on a Monday.
What have you been watching on the TV this week, Glenn?
Nothing at all. Nothing whatsoever. It's been a hectic week, but I'm going to tie my TV I'm going to make this a recommendation. I'm going to tie it in with Kriv Stenders because he's on the show. He directed a few television shows, including the remake of Wake in Fright. He's done a few others, but he's done one TV show that I actually think is one of the best TV shows in Australia. And I don't remember what year it is, but it was about 10 years ago. It's called The Principal, with Alex Dimitriadis.
Oh, I've never even heard of this. And
the significance of this is a lot of the crew, some of the cast are in The Correspondent, so it's the team getting back together. But Alex Dimitriadis, Mia Folks, Aidan Young, Salvador Coco, I can never pronounce this actor's name, but Rahul Rahman.
Is there a closet full of peanut brittle? Huh? That's a principal gag.
I know. I was waiting for it because I was going to say, aside from the fact it's not the Jim Belushi principle, I think that you would like this. But it's not that far removed from that thematically anyway. So it is about a young teacher that has been hired and promoted to become the principal of a really unruly kind of school in Sydney. And it's like
sounding similar.
Yeah, it is. But he comes in with a very unorthodox approach, right? Which you'd think is cracking skulls, which you kind of want it to be, right? But instead,
crack some skulls.
The problem is it's the other teachers that have that kind of philosophy because they're fed up with the students. And this guy comes in wanting to understand them, and he wants to get into their heads and work out what makes them tick, right?
Always a mistake.
Yeah, exactly. So the shit that goes down in the show
sounds like Class of 1984 with Perry King.
It is really hectic.
Until they rape his wife, and then he has to lay down the law.
And it goes into a whole lot of social issues, obviously. And I love that Alex Dimitriadis plays this principal because obviously he was in Heartbreak High.
Heartbreak High and Head On, yeah.
And I think there's some other Heartbreak High alumni in there as well. But look, I do highly recommend it. I won't go on about it in depth because I haven't watched it recently. I just remember how good it was. But I think it's on like SBS On Demand or ABC iView, whichever network, had it. It's up there to watch. It's called The Principal. Get on it. I like Alex Dimitriadis in this role too. He's got a beard. He looks gruff. He's not the head on Alex Dimitriadis. That would have been interesting. If you know, you know. Yeah. What about you?
I went back and watched a show that I loved as a kid. Mm-hmm. Do you remember Manimal?
Oh, that rings a bell. Manimal.
Was it
Manimal or Manimals?
Manimal.
Okay.
Manimal. It was.
Ring my bell.
Colette style. I think it was in the mid 80s, and it starred Simon McCorkindale from Riddle of the Sands, mm-hmm. and Melody Anderson from Flash Gordon, and she's a cop, she's not a rookie cop, but they kind of make her out to be, mm-hmm. Kind of a young and inexperienced kind of cop.
Yep.
And he is a visiting British professor who helps the police on all kinds of animal-related crime.
I don't remember this at all.
But the twist is that he can turn into any kind of animal.
Suddenly, it does ring a bell.
And so for the most part, he turns into a panther, but he can turn into a hawk or a snake.
This is great.
and together they solve crimes.
I never
all the
watched
while. Now, the funny thing about Simon McCorkindale is you watch him in Riddle of the Sands, and he is kind of young and fairly naive and innocent. But in everything else,
Yep.
he knows exactly how good looking he is, and he pretty much plays a sleaze. And in this movie, this TV series, he does not stop coming on to Melody Anderson.
And
it is great.
This does look great. I mean, when I'm looking at it, I don't remember it. When you describe it, I do. I just looked it up, and there's some claims to fame in here. Do you see who did the music for it?
No.
Composer Alan Silvestri.
Oh, there you go.
All episodes except the pilot movie.
So, and the pilot movie is what I watched, and I thought I was in for a half an hour episode, and it was like, this episode's going for a long time.
And the transformation sequences were done by Stan Winston.
See, the funny thing is that because I was watching it going, this is how you do a transformation sequence when you don't have the time or budget of American Werewolf in London. And like some of them look really shit, but in a really awesome way.
Yeah.
And some of them look great.
Okay.
And some of them, they go from being really shit. Like there's a scene where it's a panther claw and it's clearly a soft toy with the nails retract, and then it starts to ripple and it turns into a hand. The part where it starts to ripple and turn into a hand is really good, but the way that the nails retract into the clearly soft toy claw is really shit.
Hilarious.
It's great. It is a lot of fun. It's very similar in kind of tone to something like The Highwayman if you watch that.
Yep.
And it's a crime of the week type show, but definitely worth checking out. I think it's been released locally a couple of times, but definitely in the US, you can still buy the box set on the old. I don't think it's on any streaming service, or if it is, it's going to be a Tubi. It's a Tubi type show.
Begging for a remake.
But definitely worth checking that one out.
When the intellectual morons from Good Movie Monday asked me to promote their show, I said, absolutely not. In fact, I find the request quite insulting, let alone stupid. Who do they think they are? And don't start me on that Ben fellow. Have you seen the state of his room? I mean, come on. Get real.
Let's talk a little bit about Kriv Stenders, Ben. So this is a pretty prolific filmmaker. He just seems to be pumping stuff out left, right, and centre. He did the 2 Red Dog movies. They're a big claim to fame. He did the Australia Day movie with Brian Brown. Kill Me 3 Times with Simon Pegg. Danger Close. He did Boxing Day. He's just done so much. And a heap of television, as I alluded to before. His new one is The Correspondent. Do you remember about 15 years ago, there was the story all over the headlines about Peter Grest, the Australian journalist that was arrested in Egypt and tried as a terrorist.
Yeah.
And then imprisoned. All trumped up charges. Like he wasn't any of those things. He simply was a guy filling in at the bureau over there for a mate on Christmas break, right? So He's a very experienced, and that was the problem, is he's a very, very experienced journalist doing a desk job, as a favor, and the Egyptian government didn't buy that. They're like, well, no, you're far too qualified. Why are you really here? You must be, and then
a spy.
They cracked the safe in his hotel room, and he's got like $10,000. And like, why do you possibly need this money? It's like, well, that's my money for the entire, that's my stay money. Anyway, so you probably know the story, and look it up if not. But Kriv has decided to make this film with Richard Roxburgh playing Peter Grest. It is, if you like Midnight Express or Balibo, those sort of journalist movies as well, where they're in war-torn countries like Salvador. This one is for you. It's really well made, and interestingly, as you'll find out, Peter Grest and Kriv Stenders actually go back to childhood. Their fathers, were colleagues, and it just so happened that he was the right person to direct this. So anyway, let's have a chat with Kriv, and we'll see you on the flip side for, I guess we've got something else. Like Ben's hosting this one, so he'll know all about it. My page is blank.
Just...
Muhammad wa Peter Grest.
Killed
Tahir Muhammad.
7 years.
I gotta say, I'm yet to come across any of your films that I haven't loved. So congrats.
Oh, thanks.
Congrats on this
Thank
one.
you.
It's a beauty.
Thank you.
I'm sort of start by prefacing that I know you've done a lot of media for this, and I've actually intentionally avoided as much of it as possible, simply so I can come at these questions as fresh as possible and with a curiosity factor. So I apologize if I ask you something you've answered a million times.
That's fine. That's fine. Don't worry.
I do know, however, that you were friends with Peter Grest long before his ordeal in Egypt.
I wasn't friends. I knew him.
Right.
I knew our parents were friends. Our fathers are friends and colleagues.
Okay.
They're both architects, and they're both Latvian, and both our families are Latvian. And I think I met Peter when I was about, I don't know, 12 or 10, and he was about, same age or a year younger. Because when the story broke, it was obviously big news amongst our families, and I was kind of obviously, on tenterhooks the whole time he was in prison.
That would have been very surreal. So did you know then and there that it's maybe something that you'd love to tell his story later on, or was it not even in your mind to make a movie?
Oh, look, maybe it had kind of, because it was still playing out. You know what I mean? The whole thing hadn't really. It was active. It was live. So I wasn't really, because there was no outcome.
Yeah.
It was all still playing out. So I didn't think about it then. And then maybe when he was finally released, maybe the idea did quickly shoot through my brain. I can't remember, but I was obviously maybe too busy on something else. And it was only until Carmel Travers, the producer, called me about 4 years ago and said, "Do you know anything about Peter Grester?" And I laughed and said, "I do actually know him."
Yeah.
And she said, "I'm doing a film about it." I said, "Look, sign me on. I don't even have to read the script. I'm on board." That was the sort of the kind of the turning point moment for me.
And was he already sort of involved as a consultant or anything at that point in time?
Very much so, very much so. I mean, Carmel optioned his book, The First Casualty, which is being re-released now under the title The Correspondent, and she's an ex-journo herself, so she was very vested in the material. And the great thing was that what came with that was Peter's involvement, and Peter was very involved with the writing of the first draft with Peter Duncan. And remained involved in all the drafts. So we'd always vet the script with Peter. So having that access and his blessing was great.
Yeah, for sure. And was he beside you as well through production? Like,
not really beside. I wouldn't say beside. He was on call.
Yeah.
He was available, and he was, as I said, accessible and very open to discussing anything. I only think he came to set once for one day. But by that point, we grilled him. Even all the heads of department, we had a big lunch one day and we sat down and spent 6 hours just basically interrogating him about everything from the kind of toothbrush he used to the underpants he wore and all that kind of stuff. So we got our money's worth out of him.
Man, I mean, these guys are made of like tough stuff, but I can't imagine reliving the whole ordeal again, like through writing the book and then, having a film made and being a consultant on it. Did it have an emotional effect on it? Did he seem to be emotional when this stuff was, being fleshed out and recreated?
Yeah, I think he had a couple of moments, I think, where it was a little overwhelming. But he'd also, Peter's a very, very strong person.
Yeah.
Because he had to be to survive what he did. And he picked up a lot of amazing psychological, tools during his time there. And I think that stood him well over the years. And he has written about it, and he has come to terms with it. So by the time we were making the film, he was fairly resilient. But I do remember the day I first showed him the film, that was quite confronting for him. And, I remember sitting next to him all throughout it going, oh my God, he hates it. You create all these kind of scenarios in your head. And then the film finished and he walked out. He said, "Sorry, excuse me." And I went, oh my God. And then he came back a few minutes later and said, "I'm sorry, I just had to gather myself." And he was very emotional. And he said, you've done an amazing job. And,
oh, man.
And he was very, and he realized as well, he had to kind of do sort of a mental calculation in his head saying, no, this isn't me. This is a story about me.
Yeah.
But he said, cumulatively, you got it so right. So that was very, very gratifying to hear that.
100%. I imagine too, for him, like even those flashbacks with Kate would have been really difficult. That whole storyline was really well sort of woven through the film. Was her story always going to be part of it?
Well, look, it became part of it because when I first got the first script was quite traditional. It wasn't with Peter in the jail, even though that was one part of the story, but it would cut to Australia and the family, and it cut to like the consulate in Egypt and in Canberra. I think there were all these different story strands going on, all these different islands of action and characters going on. And I just felt, look, I think the film is in Peter's story. I think all these other stories are a little, they're getting in the way. And it just felt a little bit standard. And I felt we have an opportunity here to do something really cinematic and really striking and making the audience feel what Peter feels. And I really wanted to make the audience see through Peter's eyes and literally see and experience what he experienced, which was essentially the minute there was a knock on the door, it was just a constant labyrinth of the insides of prison vans, prison cells, corridors, courtrooms. You know, that's what Peter saw.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, wow, if we did that, we'd be able to kind of make something really interesting. And so Kate's story really became something, therefore, that became very important because it allowed us a reprieve out of that world, so we could escape that world for a few moments and a few beats. But because Peter was never really, because he never escaped, he wasn't rescued, he wasn't tortured, because there wasn't any of those classic kind of prison movie tropes to sort of lean back on structurally, we realized because we didn't have a dramatic climax, we came to the realization we've actually got an emotional climax. Which is Kate's death. And then we reverse engineered from that, using Kate's death as the moment of him, you know, discovering that she's died as our denouement, as our kind of climactic point. And that was how the film suddenly kind of came together, knowing that we would have this sort of ticking time bomb, that if we played it right, that would coincide with his release. We would be able to kind of create something very powerful for the audience to experience and give an insight into how Peter felt at that point in time.
Yeah, for sure. And it was a powerful moment. I remember the entire cinema I was in, you know, in gasp in that moment. Just couldn't. We knew it was coming, but you know, it's done so well.
Thank you.
Was there any pushback at all, like from the Egyptians? Like, did their consulate get in touch and object to it at all? Nothing like that.
No, we haven't heard anything yet. I mean, as the credits say at the end, Peter is still a convicted terrorist in Egypt, and Peter says, you know, he's been saying in the Q&As, he's saying, well, this is what's great about this film is it gives me a chance. I mean, it gives me a chance to just give a big up yours to the Egyptian government because they've done nothing but ruin so many people's lives, including Ala El Fatah, who's still in prison. The character who kind of saved Peter, gave him the psychological tools that he needed to survive. So it's still, you know, for us, it's and for Peter especially, the film is a real important clarion call and a reminder that, you know, this regime is still active and still suppressing and oppressing its own people.
Incredible. It's fascinating that you and Peter sort of, you know, have a connection going back, but I think Peter Duncan and Richard Roxburgh also go way back. They, I believe, did Rake together. They've had a working relationship for a while, if I'm not mistaken. Did their well-established sort of relationship make it lighter work for you, as far as, you know, how Richard comes about acting out the words?
Well, it certainly helped. You know, that kind of familiarity and that shorthand is great, but it's still hard work, no matter what. You know, even if there wasn't that connection. But you know, Richard's a very, very smart, very generous, very empathetic human being, and he just made the whole job for me very pleasurable because I knew he was invested in it. I knew he was up for it. I had worked with him before in my previous film, so I knew what he was like, and he was an absolute delight to work with. And, you know, Peter Duncan and I had spent, you know, about 3 years developing the script. So there was a kind of a good sort of trust and familiarity amongst all of us. So it was just, it was easy on one level, but hard on another because we physically had to make it work. And it was a tough shoot because Richard was in every scene over the 6 weeks, and you know, it was a grueling schedule. So he was running one in the morning, crying in the afternoon, and you know, playing backgammon, you know, before lunch.
I imagine as an actor for Richard, it makes it, I wouldn't say easier, but it helps to give a great performance when you've got an authentic looking or feeling environment around you. So I want to sort of ask you about the production design. I've got an old mate who used to be a war photojournalist, He's now a Hollywood journalist, but I used to watch his work vicariously through his website and his social media, and it was such a harrowing experience to watch, this kind of stuff unfold in real time. I think you've captured something really authentic with The Correspondent that I sort of related back to those images I used to watch. What things do you do to make the film as genuine and as authentic as possible, with environments and whatnot, when you're not there at the time? You've recreated it.
Well, you do your research. You go online and you look at anything and everything you can find. For example, about Egyptian prisons. And there are some Egyptian films that I watched. One, I can't remember the title of it now. Incredible film, all set inside a prison van at the time of Peter's arrest. That was an amazing resource. And we also had all the news reports at the time, because it was just after the Arab Spring. There's a great documentary called The Square, which was about the square in Cairo where all the activists and everyone would congregate, and every time there was a overthrowing of government, that's where everyone kind of amassed. So there was a lot of material, and you just kind of magpie it. You just sort of pick what you think is right, and then you combine that with the resources you've got here, and you create this kind of palette of colors and textures. And that's the fun part, really, of making these films, is that you always draw from reality and try and reflect it somehow and put it together to kind of tell the story you've got on the page.
It must be gratifying then when Peter gives you that tick of approval. Yep, you've nailed it.
Yeah, well, we shot it all in Sydney.
Yeah.
We couldn't go to Cairo.
That's right, phenomenal.
But, I always knew the camera only needs to see what it needs to see. It doesn't need to see everything. We don't need. There's no drone shots of Cairo. It's literally what's through the bars of the cell, and how those walls look, and how the corridors look, and how the lighting feels. And that's what we do in movie making. That's as I said, that's our palette. That's our job, is to paint with those colors and with those textures and with those lenses and with that light to create accumulatively the sense that we're there.
For sure. The film has a really strong legal thriller aspect to it, for want of a better phrase. How difficult is it balancing truth and integrity with entertainment value?
Well, it all stems down to the script. Peter Duncan wrote a really great script. And that's the challenge. I think is in the writing, and is filtering that and making it dramatic and making it still truthful, but making it compelling and making it also feel real. For me, the courtroom scenes were the most challenging, because courtroom dramas, as we know, are kind of a staple of television. And it was really important that when I did those sequences, that there was a sort of a verisimilitude to them, that they felt dramatic and cinematic. And that first-person perspective, always seeing it through those grills, was kind of part of that. But even in the edit, there was a lot more stuff shot in that courtroom. There were a lot more scenes that was set in there. But in the edit, we realized, we're really going to run out of favors very quickly if we keep staying in this courtroom. So the editor and I worked. That was the hardest part of the edit, was just getting that courtroom middle section of the film really chugging along. And we just then realized all we needed are the really main key points, the dramatic moments where there were big shifts in the court case, and get rid of the minutiae. So that was the trick. Once you've shot it, and once you've shot the script, the trick is then to kind of, in the edit, make it come alive and not making it feel suddenly like we're watching TV.
Yeah, I think the chaos of those courtroom scenes, and just like the primitive nature of it, having them behind bars all grouped together, and the judge being as corrupt as he was, like that, it just made it such a thrilling watch. And I was just constantly thinking, man, this is such an entertaining movie as well as being like informal. So yeah, well done on that. I don't have you for long, so I'm going to quickly pivot if I can. One thing I do love to ask everybody I talk to is, was there a film in your youth or childhood that put you on course to become a filmmaker? Is there one film that sort of lit the spark?
Jaws.
Yes, excellent. I'm glad you said that. It's one of my favorites of all time.
I'll never forget. It was I think it was September in '75. I was 11.
Yep.
My father took me to a midday session at the George Cinema in Brisbane. It was a packed cinema. It was electrifying. The atmosphere in that cinema was like, I'd never experienced anything like that in my life. It was so wonderful. I came out like literally humming and buzzing, going, what did I just watch? And everything about that film, everything about the way the camera moved, the colors, the characters, the entertainment of it, the suspense of it, the horror of it. I was like, wow. And then I started reading about this guy called Steven Spielberg, and I read that he's been making films since he was a kid, that his father got him a Super 8 camera. So I begged my father to get me a Super 8 camera, and then I just started this intense, passionate, obsessive love affair with cinema. I mean, then it was Jewel, and then it was everything that he'd made, Sugarland Express, and then realizing, oh my God, there's European cinema, there's not just American cinema, there's Australian cinema, and at that time, Australian cinema was really strong. So I felt like, this could be a potential career. This could be something I could do. And I was off and running.
Man, I'm glad you said that. There was a moment, first day in film school for me, because I went to film school, where we had sat in a circle and we had to all talk about who our favourite filmmakers are. And I was the only one that said somebody like Spielberg. I said Steven Spielberg, hands down. And I got laughed at, right? Because you had all these pretentious people saying Fellini and all this kind of stuff. And it was my teacher that jumped in and says, well, that's the only honest answer I've heard all day.
It's true.
It's a business. And if you want to aspire to something, aspire to that.
Well, Spielberg, no matter what, he's fault him on whatever level you want. He's still man, I'm actually even more impressed with Jewel than I am with Jaws.
Yeah.
Jewel I still watch every year just to remind myself, this is the kind of film I'd love to make one day. Just shoot it in 13 days and put the camera where the story is, and just that film is a masterclass in filmmaking. He is a genius with the camera.
If you do something like that, I will be there. Day one, front row, mate. I would love that.
I'm working on it.
I'm going to end it with a compliment and just tell you that one of my favourite pieces of Australian television was The Principal. So thank you, sir. I absolutely adore that series. So that was amazing.
Thanks. Well, a lot of the cast are in this. So I was able to work with Rahel Rahman again, and it was great.
So good.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time, mate. Love The Correspondent, and I hope it really does well.
Thanks, Glenn. Thanks so much. Thanks for the feedback.
1989. The power of David Hasselhoff reunites East and West Germany. Ironically, while performing at the fall of the Berlin Wall, his tight jeans separated the East testicle from his West testicle.
Well, now we're going to talk about nothing because neither of us know what's up next.
And Glenn's page is blank.
Glenn's page is blank. He forgot to fill it out. Or maybe we should talk about the films of 1989. Yeah. The year I don't know what I first did in 1989.
Nutted.
No, I don't know if I...
Nah.
I would have been 10. I don't know, maybe.
We could talk about that on next week's show.
I think it was to Hots playing late night on Channel 7. So, it's quite possible. What year did Hots come out? And that's H, full stop, O, full stop, T, full stop, S, full stop. That's a very important distinction if you're trying to look it up right now, because you're desperate to know what film did Ben lose his masturbatorial Jerry to. Let's go through the top 10 films of 1989, starting at number 10. Born on the 4th of July. This is the first movie I saw that I heard people drink worms with tequila. I'd never heard that before. I was like, this is gross. I don't care if you got no legs.
I remember, I think it was Das Kapital was the first time I learnt that. Eat the worm, and the worm's like a little puppet.
Number 9, The Little Mermaid. Number 8, Ghostbusters 2. It's a bit of there's quite a few sequels in this list. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids at number 7.
Oh, what a banger!
Lethal Weapon 2.
Mm-hmm.
Also a banger. Dead Poet Society. Still never seen it. Look Who's Talking. I remember loving this movie as a kid. I would have been 10. And
trying to get over that last comment. Okay.
I've never seen Dead Poet Society. Every time someone does Captain My Captain, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Okay.
Back to the Future Part 2 is number 3. Batman, number 2. And by about $50 million worldwide gross, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which is the first movie I remember going to see theatrically that wasn't a Disney movie.
Okay, that's interesting.
I think
we've kind of covered that,
about
haven't we?
this,
That
yeah.
you were exposed to a lot of movies on video for the
My
first
parents
time.
were video people. They weren't.
Yeah.
They were never film cinema people, but they were. They come from immigrant stock, so they weren't really. It wasn't their cup of tea.
Indiana Jones, number one, number three of the Indiana Jones franchise of all things is the biggest ticket of the year.
And I would say it's my favorite of the bunch. And I don't know if that has to do with it being the one I saw at the cinema, but
probably it's probably very nostalgic, you know.
Yeah,
interesting. Well, let's
Like I remember, I saw it at the Hoyt Cinema 8.
Yep.
In Chadston, and they had, I think they must have had like 8 simultaneous screenings.
Yeah.
Because you lined up they told you which line you were in for each cinema, but everyone was there to see Indiana Jones.
Yeah, it was certainly the first indie movie I'd seen at the cinema, and so it was very exciting for that fact. Yeah, for sure. And it's just a banger movie, man. It's so good. Before we go through all of the films of the year, we have
so fucking many.
There are so many. Hopefully, like we get to the end of the 90s, it's gonna dwindle.
It'll peter out.
There'll be more movies, but just less to talk about.
It'll peter out by about 95, I reckon.
Yeah. So we can't have an episode without mentioning number one listener Brody Kane. His favourite movie of '89 was Pet Sematary.
Oh, I didn't even have that on my list.
Yeah, which is
probably
it's a great
because they
movie.
misspelt the word cemetery.
And that pissed him off. One of Stephen King's arguably darkest films or stories, I should say.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want me to kick it off in no particular order?
Sure, go for it.
Okay. Cameron's Closet, Deep Star 6, Gleam in the Cube, Parents 3, Fugitives.
January Man, Cohen and Tate, Parents, Her Alibi, Conjette, Forbidden Subjects.
Man, Who's Harry Crumb, Cousins, The Fly 2, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, The Burbs, and American Ninja 2. I saw Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure at the cinemas too, not knowing what the fuck it was. It was one of those sort of mystery screenings. What a treat.
Wow.
What a treat.
What do we got? Toxic Avenger 2, did you say that one?
Yeah, that's for Brody. We haven't missed
for
that
Brody.
one. Jesus.
Dream a Little Dream, Skin Deep, Chances Are, Police Academy 6, City Under Siege.
Fletch Lives, 967 Evil, Dead Bang, Troop Beverly Hills, Heathers, Cyborg. You may have said some of these. Dead Calm, Dream Team.
Yeah, wow.
Like I'm not even paying attention to all of what you're saying because I've got so many in front of me.
Say Anything, She's Out of Control, Kickboxer, Field of Dreams, Teen Witch, Top That.
Loverboy, Earth Girls Are Easy, See No Evil, Hear No Evil, Fright Night 2, How I Got Into College, Miracle Mile, Roadhouse, Pink Cadillac.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
K9, Star Trek 5, The Final Frontier, Traveling Man. It's come up already a couple of times in the show. Karate Kid 3, Weekend at Bernie's, When Harry Met Sally, Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan.
Man, did you say Uncle Buck? Casualties of War, Eddie and the Cruisers 2, Little Monsters, The Package, Wired, Shirley Valentine, Driving Miss Daisy.
Did you say Casualties of War? Cookie,
Yeah.
The Package, Sea of Love, with the reverse rape. It's not really a reverse rape. She just climbs Al Pacino, which is the weirdest. As a young masturbator, watching this scene, going, "What she's Big Spoon in this." I don't understand what's happening.
There are 2 other movies I know of that have reverse rapes. One,
The Rookie?
Well, okay, 3. One is a kind of porn. It is a porno called Joy, but it's a theatrical porno.
Oh, yeah.
Joy. And it might not be the Joy you're thinking. There's 2.
Oh, it's another joke.
Anyway, and the other one, it's about a female rapist. And the other one is Thursday with Thomas Jane. Right?
Yes.
Now,
yeah.
these are horrible reverse rape scenes. And
Pauline
yet,
Porzakova?
they turned me on like you cannot believe. I just wished I was Thomas Jane in that
There are
movie.
worse fates. To be. Who is it? Is it Pauline Porzakova or like Magic Amick or someone like that who does the raping?
Like, it's just, I mean,
Someone who's incredibly attractive.
look, this
anyway.
episode's probably flagged already because we've said the word, but like when it is
Yeah.
reversed, it is a different situation, isn't it? Let's be real about it.
Like, there's certain things that you can't force certain things unless you're into it.
That's right. Yeah. Well,
It's not going to happen.
Thursday kind of proves that.
Have I told you about my... This is the most offensive thing that'll ever appear on this show.
It's nothing to do with that first nut, is it?
No,
Okay.
I'm prefacing this.
All right, hey,
But
let's preface it a little more. Do I need to take this out of the show?
Quite possibly.
Okay.
And we'll know after this if you've taken it out. I came up with this idea for a movie, for a short film that I was going to
know
make.
exactly where you're going.
It's about this guy. It starts off with this guy in a warehouse, and the camera kind of comes in on him and he's standing at a workbench and he's kind of humping into it. And as the camera kind of comes in and pans around, you see he's got a severed head in a vice that he is having sex with.
A few moments later.
It's just like a bunch of blood and pus come flying out.
This is amazing. So the only reason why this would be cut from the show is I don't want anyone to steal that idea. Like, let's trademark that right now. Let's trademark it.
So offensive.
And you could also throw another person under the bus here that you conjured up this story with, but we're not going to do that.
No, let's not do that.
But let's just say you're not the only pervert in the world.
It's a
This
great
is a
idea.
bit of a collaborative effort, but that's a fantastic movie. I'll write that with you if you want. Like,
You know what else came out in 1989?
let's keep going.
Let's go
Let's
back. There's so many more. Puppet Master, Innocent Man, Chud 2, Bud the Chud, Eric the Viking, Black Rain.
man, Shocker, Communion, My Left Foot, All Dogs Go to Heaven, Harlem Nights, Christmas Vacation. Did we say that? Glory.
Fabulous Baker Boys, Worth Winning, Best of the Best, Communion, My Left Foot, Steel Magnolias, Harlem Nights.
All right, cool. Well, we're starting to repeat now. So let's talk
did
about.
you say those already?
That's all right. Let's start about some Australian ones.
Did you mention Tango and Cash?
No,
Like,
we have
we get
now.
into the-
We
and-
have now.
And there's a couple of Australia. There's some British ones. There's one which I'm not sure if you're going to bring up later.
Okay.
But
You
should
can
be
say
on
it.
your
You can
list.
say it. Yep.
Roadkill.
No, I haven't got that.
I haven't got that on there, but I do know that he's a favourite of yours.
Of course, the Canadian film.
The Canadian film
Bruce McDonald
Roadkill.
one. Yep.
Snake Eater, also one of your favourite movies, because you still don't know where he hit the
So
microphone.
Lorenzo, what's his name?
Lorenzo Lamas.
Go and watch it. I forgot about it. It's in the opening
Still,
15 minutes. It's
Where
great.
is it?
Yeah.
Where do you hide it? But there's a couple of cracker Australian films: Houseboat Horror, Blood Moon, Chances. The TV show Chances premiered in 1989. The Delinquents, which I think we kind of talked about earlier, maybe off mic.
Dead Calm.
Luigi's Ladies, Dead Calm. Sons of Steel, Spirits of the Air, Gremlins of the Cloud. So some debuts of some pretty kind of successful
Salute
filmmakers.
the Jugger.
Salute the Jugger, which is now getting a 4K restoration thanks to Umbrella.
Spirits of the Air, Gremlins of the Clouds. There's
Mull,
Bangkok Hilton. There's so many.
Wolves of Willoughby. The Tall Guy. The Tall Guy came out
So
in
lucky.
1989.
There'll be that one-
The Punisher, which they shot in Melbourne.
There'll be that one fucking person who
Dolph
goes, "Oh,
Lundgren.
you missed this movie." It's like, come off it. Like, seriously, and Brody, give us a break. So let's talk about maybe what we would round off as our favourites before we throw it to the Boneheads to see what they've come up with.
Yeah.
So I've got nostalgic as always. The fact that I've got two of these posters on my wall in the movie room, not in this one, in the where we watch movies. Dead Bang. I talk
Yeah,
about it all the
I
time.
knew it was going to be.
And The Wizard. Right? The Wizard is not only nostalgic, I have it on my wall. It's a movie that gives me good feelings when I think about it. Right?
It lies so hard about the Power Glove.
Oh, it does. It does. Absolutely. Christian Slater's in it. He's cool.
He's great.
Fred Savage. But I want to give honourable mentions too, because obviously I talk about them fairly frequently, or one of them anyway, Kickboxer. I think that's a banger. I think it's a real movie of that year. I think most people watching it have probably seen that more than any of the others.
Yeah.
And then I'd have to say UHF, or as we would say, the Vidiot from UHF, just because I could probably recite that verbatim. Such a great film.
See, for me, I have to say, look, Roadhouse. Yeah. Roadhouse and Major League are probably...
I would have picked Roadhouse for you.
Like the two ones that I would have watched most and enjoyed.
Moving forward, we should predict each other's. At least
that's
one
what we
of
should
them.
do. Yeah.
All right. So the show's right in the south right now.
And of course, look, and I'll throw in Uncle Buck and Miracle Mile as my...
Uncle Buck. Second week in a row we've referenced that.
Yeah. But there's one that I also just want a little shout out to, and that's the Rachel Papers. If you know, you know. That's all I'm going to say about that one.
Welcome to Bonehead Weekly Fun Size, and we finally are tackling the year 1989. Who wants to go first? Can we all agree at the best movie that summer, what the best movie is, and then we all pick?
I don't know. What's the best movie?
Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's the best. I don't know that it's the best, but I know we all three love it.
Well, can I say, and it's not going to be my pick, and if I'm stealing somebody's,
it's not my pick.
But can I say that probably the most cultural impact was Batman?
No, shut up. Shut up.
Go ahead, Chad.
So my pick is Batman.
But it's the one with the most cultural impact. He's right.
It is. It's the one with the most cultural impact. It was my movie of the year. I waited. I
Well,
anticipated.
you had to. That wasn't coming out till that 4th of July.
I know. I waited 7 months. It was 6 days before my birthday. I waited and waited and waited, knowing it was coming. I heard all the complaints about Michael Keaton. I was one of the few who was stoked that he was going to be Batman. And then it came out and I was floored.
Oh yeah, it surpassed everything.
It surpassed everything. It was when you're a kid who loves superheroes and loves comic books, and that is what you get. It was everything you could have hoped for.
Yeah, yeah.
And it just blew my mind. And now there are tons of great movies from '89, but nothing surpassed that.
Well,
for
I'll
me.
go next, and I'll make mine really quick. There's some really good romantic comedies out there. There's His Girl Friday. There is His Girl Friday. Probably His Girl Friday.
I want
That
to have a
being-
special shout out before we wrap.
Okay. That being said, one of the best romantic comedies ever made, directed by Rob Reiner and written by the late great Nora Ephron, was When Harry Met Sally, and it came out in 1989. It doesn't get much better than that. It, to me, is a classic film. It's probably one of the gold standards of any you can shake your head. It is the gold standard.
Wait till
any
you hear my
romantic-
shout out.
romantic comedy of all time. The only thing that would even come close to it that summer or that year was Leviathan. James.
You know what? I'm going to go with the movie.
I
that
was
have-
jokingly shaking my head, by the way. It is an amazing movie.
It's it's right up there with anything made in the late 30s, early 40s by Cap or anybody else. Go ahead.
The movie I'm going to go with is definitely a cult classic now, but I saw it. I didn't get to see it in theaters because I don't think it came to theaters anywhere near where I was. But once it came out on VHS, we probably rented it once every 6 months, and that's UHF. If you were a Weird Al fan, I mean, this was the movie that you were waiting for. It was everything, and it did not do as
Chad. He
well.
was too busy waiting on Batman. He couldn't have two lovers in his heart.
If
There's one other movie.
but it was just such a. I mean, if you love slapstick and off the wall, it's he takes over a UHF station, but he just gives them an excuse to do tons of skits like Conan the Librarian and Gandhi 2. This time he's back for vengeance. I mean, the entire idea of mocking films in a movie, I loved it. I love Weird Al to this day. It still bums me that movie didn't get the box office that actually they thought it was going to. It was tracking really well until this Batman film popped
It's
up.
one of the best. It's one of the best audience scores from Orion ever had in its history, in its short history.
Yeah,
and it's the studio that gave us Silence of the Lambs and RoboCop.
Yep, and so UHF is just it's. I mean, it's not the be all end all of films that year, but it definitely deserves more credit than it gets. So that was mine for '89.
My quick. Anybody else, chat? What's your quick shout out?
The only other movie that had people more anticipated than Batman was the one that asked the amazing question of 1989. Who's Harry Crumb?
I've got an honorable shout out too. I'm going to say forget Ghost. Sorry, Patrick Swayze. I'm going to go always deserves more respect than it gets. I'm sticking to that always.
Always, yeah. It's the forgotten Spielberg film. Yeah. And with that, Leviathan. This has been Bonehead Weekly Fun Side.
I already said it.
Fight. What do you reckon, Glenn? Deep Blue Sea or the Meg?
Far out. I think I'm the one that proposed this battle.
Yeah.
And I don't really care. Like, I don't care. Like, far out. Like, I don't know why I did this. I think just because they're both shark movies.
I think because we were talking about a shark movie. It was supposed to be on the week that we were talking about shark movie, and then you decided these don't have to relate in any way to the interview,
in fact,
so you
it's
just
probably better if it's more variety.
Yeah.
So okay. So look,
now it just makes no sense.
I'll just put it out there and say I think the Meg. I think I'll go with the Meg because Deep Blue Sea. I was never that fan that everyone. Like, here's the funny thing, right? Like, I've got to bear my bonnet now that I'm thinking about it. Like, when Deep Blue Sea came out, I thought it was pretty shit, right? Another subpar Rennie Harlan movie, right? Like, And I remember in my mind, nobody really liked it. Like, it was like, oh, yeah, that stupid shark movie. And now I'm listening to people retrospectively going, oh, it's a fucking classic. It's a B-movie masterpiece. I don't remember you reacting that way at the time.
I see. I'm on the other camp. I liked Deep Blue Sea. I thought the Meg was just like a pandering version of Deep Blue Sea for the Chinese market.
They made the Meg so that they could make the Meg 2, the Trench, which
Yeah.
I watched the other night, and it's just so ridiculously awful that it's wonderful, and I enjoyed that more than the first one. So
It's just, look, I love Jason Statham, but don't put him in a movie where he can't punch or kick someone in the face. He can't punch or kick a shark.
no, but that's why they spend the first 10 minutes punching and kicking people in the face.
Yeah. I mean, for me, look, I love the twist. I thought the twist with Samuel L. Jackson was amazing because he literally does the speech.
He
does the, come on, people, we've got to get together. And then,
boom,
then he gets killed. You're like,
Snap.
I was like, this is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
It also does introduce, I think it's the first movie where LL Cool J does talk about how the black guys never make it to the end of the film.
Yeah, that's true. And that
It's
became
great.
a trope moving forward.
And that became people talked about it all the time after this.
Well, yeah.
And I also remember who's the British actress? Saffron Burrows is the female lead in the film.
Yeah.
And that was the one where they on the big billboards in Los Angeles, they'd airbrushed her backside. And she made a big she's like, that is not my body. What has happened here?
Man, the one thing that does stick out to me about this one that I do enjoy about it is the final act, right? It's very much it's a take on Jaws 2, I think, almost. Like, you got, I think it's Thomas Jane as the last man standing.
Yeah, and he's the shark whisperer.
Yeah, he's kind of lying down with the gun, waiting for it to jump, and all that. And like, that is just straight out of Jaws 2. But that's fun. I like the whole scaffold or whatever you call it, the platform they're walking on.
Yeah.
I like the atmosphere that scene
But
conjures. But
he does the coolest thing that has ever been done in a shark film.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing at the start is that he's the shark wrangler. If you haven't seen it, it's all set on a research
you haven't
stage.
seen it, he's already spoiled the twist for you.
Both films are set on a shark research. Yeah, tough shit.
It's been long enough.
It's been long enough for both of them. I saw Meg on 40X. So I had like pipe cleaners hitting my legs and water spitting at me every time the shark someone jumped in the water. But they're both set on these research facilities. But Thomas Jane, the sharks come past, he moves just out of the way, grabs onto their fin, and swims with them. Now, I remember thinking that was amazing, but I also remember as a kid doing a project on sharks in primary school and them saying that their skin is so rough that you can't, if it brushes against you, it will cut you.
Yeah.
Because it's harder than gravel kind of thing. So I always watch this thing and I'm like,
that's not quite true.
This isn't real.
It's not quite true.
Yeah, it probably isn't. But I just remember it being like, I don't think you could just do it with your bare hand.
No.
And just go swimming with a shark. And I know that like killer whales are notorious for they'll bump you first.
Yeah.
And then just to make sure that everything's okay. And then they swim back and then that's when they eat you. They don't just do it on the first pass.
Yep.
I don't think sharks are like that. I think sharks on the first pass, they go for you. So how he's getting out of the way... let's not go too far into the reality pool.
What I take from this is that they need that 4DX in porn theaters.
Yeah,
that'd be a cover, wouldn't it?
That would be amazing. Shapow. Rapid fire recommendations. Glennis,
Yep.
What have you been watching this week?
I decided to go back and watch one of the Oscar-nominated films from this year that I hadn't seen, and it's The Real Pain. The movie that was directed by Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin won the Oscar for. What a wonderful movie. This is right up your alley. I think you would love this one. It's just two brothers on a road trip. They're on almost like a pilgrimage back to Germany and Poland to go back to the birth home of their grandfather. But they join a tour whilst they're on there, right? So it's them and other tourists. And Kieran Culkin's character is really like manic depressive but obsessive compulsive. He's almost like a Jesse Eisenberg type.
Right.
But Jesse Eisenberg in this one is the real introvert recluse. So they have a clash of personality. They're not brothers, they're cousins.
Right.
And it's just like a road trip movie with lots of funny interactions. Jennifer Grey has a great comeback story in this one. Like she's one of the main characters and she's fantastic. And it starts off with
yet
like...
no one was talking about her at the Oscars. Those sons of bitches.
And the tour group start off really fed up with Kieran Culkin's character because he's so fucking annoying and like he's always...
See, now this is a big part of why I kind of didn't watch this movie at the time.
Yep.
Was because through the marketing, I thought this is a movie where these two, I thought they were brothers.
Yeah.
Like reconnect after a while. And Jesse Eisenberg is just depressed because everyone loves Kieran Culkin, even though he's like he's a kind of doesn't do what he says he's going to do, fucks everything up, unreliable, all those things.
He is a screw up. A screw up. They do have backstories which are fleshed out really well. It's so well written. The dialogue is so great, and they're both excellent. And I thought the whole time, I kind of wish I was watching this with Ben because we react to this in a very similar way. Jesse Eisenberg as a director on this is really good, and
I've liked him ever since I saw him being a cunt to that woman on the circuit on the press junket.
Yeah,
she was asking stupid questions.
But I saw an interview with him saying he couldn't actually direct Kieran Culkin because he is like that in real life. He does his own. He beats marches to the beat of his own drum, and he just kind of had to give Kieran Culkin the direction as far as like you got to get from A to B. And whatever you do in the middle,
you just do.
And that's what shows up on screen, and that's what got him the Oscar. And yeah, it's a really good movie.
Right. I'll have to check it out.
A real pain.
A real pain. I went back and watched a couple of Christian Slater movies this week. One we mentioned that just as a complete coincidence turned out to be from 1989. That's Gleaming the Cube, which I remember because I remember when Christian Slater broke, and it was Heathers, and then for me more so, I hadn't seen Heathers.
Pump Up the Volume,
but Pump Up the Volume was huge, and of course Name of the Rose and Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Like he was just in this kind of, and then Interview with the Vampire. It just seemed to everything he touched was gold.
Interview with the Vampire seemed to be the end of the road. I remember
that was
before he went into like made for TV or made for
and Cuffs. But he'd been replaced once Interview with the Vampire came out. Yeah. He was basically replaced by Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise.
But he was the replacement for River Phoenix.
Yeah, right.
He came in the last minute. They just thought, who can we get? Because they'd already shot some stuff with River Phoenix and had to replace him. But then after that, it was kind of DTV World for a while. And then he had this resurgence. I think Mr. Robot brought him back on the scene.
Yeah.
But this era was great.
It's great.
Young Guns too.
And for me, I always think that Gleaming the Cube is the forgotten one.
Yeah.
That he did.
I agree.
And he's like a skateboarding kid who he's Ed Lauder is his dad. Ed Lauder he's in the pilot episode of Manimal. Ed Lauder is also in the next film I'm going to talk about. But he's the dad from Career Opportunities. He's like the greatest dad. Mm-hmm. Oh no, he's not the dad from Career Opportunities. That's the major that's the admiral from Jag. No, he's the dad from Bill and Ted's. He's one of the dads. Is he one of the dads from Bill and Ted's?
No, he's not, but I know exactly who you mean. He's like from RoboCop or something like that.
Yeah, he's always plays like some kind of a hard ass in things. Like usually a hard ass dad, but he's the dad. And they've got this adopted Vietnamese son.
Yep.
And the son stumbles onto something he works at a weird Vietnamese video store / import company.
Yep.
And he stumbles across something that he shouldn't have, and he accidentally gets killed. So they fake a suicide. And the only person who doesn't believe that it's a suicide is Christian Slater, who up until this point is a screw up. Like the Vietnamese son is like the straight A student.
Yep.
Works really hard. Does what his parents says, all of that sort of stuff. He's the golden child, and Christian Slater's a screw up who just goes and breaks into people's houses and skates on their in their empty pools and stuff.
Yep.
But he's the only one who doesn't believe it's a suicide, and so that he, along with the kind of begrudging help of Stephen Bauer, who plays the cop, goes and investigates this. Max Perlich, I love Max Perlich.
I do too.
And I just wonder, in this film, I was like, do you know that you're going to grow up to be a weenie?
My favorite Max Perlich role is Beautiful Girls.
Yeah, it's
by
great.
By a mile.
I thought you were going to say Halloween H2O, or is it what's the Halloween movie with the where it's in the reality show?
Oh, the Resurrection.
Resurrection, because he's the kind of guy in the camera room.
He's in the third Sometimes They Come Back movie. He's in Ferris Bueller.
He's in Justified as
Bring back Max Perlich.
Yeah, more Max Perlich, please. Charles Cyphers pops up in this movie.
Jesse Eisenberg just needs to write another movie and just bring back Max Perlich.
The other person who's in this is one of the kind of villains is Richard Hurd. Who Richard Hurd, every time I've always thought, Carl Malden's in this. Constantly, for my entire life, I've got him and Carl Malden mixed up. The other movie I wanted to talk about briefly was The Legend of Billie Jean, which I had never seen before.
Yeah.
With Helen Slater and Christian Slater, and they are not related.
No, great poster for this one.
But they do play brother and sister in this. Great poster. The animated poster, the illustrated poster, and the other poster is great. Jesus, Helen Slater is attractive in this film, but that's the whole that gets her into so much trouble.
Yep.
But it's kind of like a Natural Born Killers Badlands type story where they become darlings of the press after a crime is committed.
Yep.
As they try and get some local kids to beat the shit out of Christian Slater and destroy his little scooter. So she goes to the perpetrator's father to try and get the money to repair the scooter, and he sleazes on her, and then a gun is pulled and someone is shot. And they go on the run, but it's fucking great. Really, really, kind of great 80s. It's like 85.
Yeah.
This is, I don't know if it was just after Supergirl. I think Supergirl was the first thing that Helen Slater ever did.
It broke her for sure. Look, I've not watched this one since VHS, and probably only saw it the once. Yeah.
It's definitely worth revisiting. Dean Stockwell is in it.
Great.
Yeardley Smith, who's like 22 at the time, playing a 13-year-old, is in it. And the guy...
Such is her life.
Yeah, such is her life. The guy who kind of plays the actual love interest for Helen Slater, who is in a bunch of movies at this time, and he's like a real nerd type guy, yet he's like the nerd that when you actually, he's like the Ross and Friends type nerd.
Yeah.
When you
looking him up now.
Yeah. There he is. Up.
That guy, Keith Gordon?
Keith Gordon.
There we go.
Now, he doesn't, like, when he's young, that's, he's in a lot of these kind of movies.
Back to School, but he's also in...
He's the son in Back to School.
Christine Dressed to Kill? Cool.
And he's the lead in Christine, of course.
Yeah. Oh, far out. I never really thought of him beyond that movie.
Beyond Christine, cool. Yeah.
Learning something every day.
And he's great. He's kind of,
he directed The Singing Detective, the Mel Gibson, Robert Downey Jr. one.
Yeah, right.
There you go. Cool. Anyway.
Going
down another rabbit hole.
Check out those two films, 85 and 89, two Christian Slater bangers.
That's a terrible title for a movie, though, The Legend of Billie Jean. For that movie, I think. It just doesn't suit it.
It just doesn't? I mean, it could, yeah.
Sorry, you had a really easy out of the show there. And
I
really walked all over it. I realised what I've done. Take us out, Ben.
I got nothing. See you next week. Cunts.
Bye. I walked all over that too.